Okay, I think we're going to get started here. It is a beautiful day outside, so I'm sure you don't want to spend all day inside with me. So we will get started and hopefully get you out of here, and then you can enjoy the rest of the day. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jenna Wallace. I am your Lincoln County District Attorney. I am also joined by my Chief Deputy District Attorney, Michael Thornycroft, who's over here playing with the camera right now. And this is our fourth town hall now in the last couple of months. We did one in Newport and Lincoln City back in December. I did one in Yachats back in February, I believe. And now we are in Toledo. So I appreciate you guys all coming out. What this really is going to give an overview kind of just what the District Attorney's Office does for your community, as well as kind of some stats about our office, and then regarding some of the budget and our staffing issues, just to kind of give you a broad overview of what we're doing for your county, and then where we are seeing kind of the biggest issues preventing us from criminally prosecuting every case that comes into the office. So I always think it's really good to start with, let's see here. Oh, good. It's not going to work. Because my clicker is not over there. Where'd it go? Hold on. There it goes. So we're going to start with just an overview of the criminal process. So as you know, crime occurs. Every county has crime. I don't think there's any county that doesn't have crime. And when crime does occur, right, you typically are calling law enforcement. You're calling 911. You're calling a non-emergency dispatch. You might even be reporting it online. Law enforcement then is responding to that crime. They are interviewing individuals on scene. They're investigating the allegations. And then ultimately, if they develop enough evidence to support that a particular individual has committed a crime, they are making the arrest. Here in Lincoln County, we have about 90 total law enforcement officers that are investigating crime. The majority of them are patrol deputies. So those are the marked patrol cars you see driving around your neighborhood. However, we do have a handful of detectives in different agencies across the board. But total, we have about 90 different law enforcement officers here in Lincoln County that are investigating crime and referring those crimes to the District Attorney's Office. After a person is arrested or a case is investigated, it's then referred to the District Attorney's Office, and that's really where we take over on criminal prosecution. We look at the probable cause affidavit, we read police reports, we may watch body camera footage as well, and we make a charging decision. Oftentimes, this decision is actually being made within probably the first 2 hours of every day if the defendant or the suspect is in custody. We are also, if we file charges, we end up going to arraignments where the defendant is advised of the charges. We are arguing about pretrial release, whether or not an individual should be held in custody because they're either a flight risk or a danger to this community or the victim, or we are recommending conditions of a release. So if they are released into the community, they should not have contact with a particular location or a particular person, not use drugs or alcohol, things of that nature. If it's a felony case, we then present it to the grand jury. Our grand jury here in Lincoln County is every Tuesday and Thursday. They serve for 2 months. So we have a Tuesday group and then we have a Thursday group, and they serve every Tuesday or Thursday for a matter of 2 months. They listen to evidence, we bring in witnesses, and they ultimately decide whether or not there's enough evidence to go forward on any felony charge. If there is enough evidence, they then true bill an indictment, and that takes the place of whatever charging instrument they were initially charged with. We also then always have a state representative at every court hearing. So we have court all day Monday, usually sporadically throughout the week, Tuesday through Friday. We have 4 different judges here in Lincoln County. They all run their own docket. And so we are responsible for covering any court hearing in any courtroom at any given time on any particular day. It gets hectic at times, but that is ultimately what we really do in that particular, I guess, for the prosecution piece of it. The Lincoln County District Attorney's Office prosecutes every crime that occurs within Lincoln County. So we are special in the fact that we don't have any municipal courts like some of the larger counties. We have municipal courts in the sense of if you get a speeding ticket here in Toledo or you get a speeding ticket, I'm assuming in Newport, they will cite you into their municipal court, Newport Municipal Court, Toledo Municipal Court. But those municipal courts don't prosecute any crime. So for example, in Eugene's municipal court, they handle most low-level misdemeanors. So they charge DUIs, they charge theft twos, they charge criminal mischiefs, things of that nature in their municipal court. So the district attorney's office doesn't have the same caseload in Lane County because of the municipal court kind of taking off a piece of that, I guess, weight. We don't have that option here in Lincoln County. So your district attorney office here and circuit court here prosecutes everything from the theft of a donut from McKay's to homicide. There's no other court or no other office that can prosecute crime here in Lincoln County. This is a graph that I think I released at the end of last year. It's a good kind of explanation. These are as of November of 2025. They are not for the entire year, but the majority of last year. And you can see, although we have a population of roughly 51,000, you can see that we have a total cases at almost a year in November of 1,666 here in Lincoln County. You can see in Benton County, which is almost twice as big of us, they were only a little bit ahead of us. You can see the orange is the misdemeanors, the blue is felonies. You can see some other comparable counties. So Clatsop County has about 10,000 population less than us. Columbia County has a few thousand more than us. We are significantly higher than them. We do a very large caseload here, case volume in Lincoln County. I also have stats from the finality of the 2 years. You can see in 2024, we had 36 juvenile cases. We also prosecute any crimes that occur by a juvenile. So if they're under the age of 18 and commit a crime, we prosecute those within our office as well. You can see that last year we had 64 juvenile criminal cases. As far as felony cases in 2024, we had 317. Last year we had 459. For misdemeanors, you can see we raised it by almost 300 between the 2 years. We also handle extradition. So that's kind of a quasi-civil, but something that our office handles. So if someone is arrested here in Lincoln County, but has a warrant out of state, for example, Nevada, Montana, Washington, they're held in our local Lincoln County jail. And they can either waive extradition and go back to whatever state they have a warrant out of, or they can fight extradition. And if they fight extradition, then the district attorney's office ultimately has to not only prove their identity through an identity hearing, but we then also have to get a governor's warrant from the state in which is wanting them. So for example, Washington, we have to go ask the Washington governor to give a governor's warrant to then send it down to us. It's an entire process. And so we handle those for other states, but then we also, if someone that has a warrant out of our state is located in Washington, we then also have to go through the process of asking for a governor's warrant to bring that person back to our state. So you can see that in 2024, we had 8 of those. Last year, we had 16 of those. And then contempt of courts, those are typically violations of restraining orders. So when someone gets a restraining order and is prohibited from contacting a certain person, we then, and they violate that, we then file a contempt of court saying they violated a court order. You can see that in 2024, we had 55 of those. Last year, we had 122. As far as case data, we had 2,386 cases that were actually referred to the district attorney's office last year. We take referrals from 5 of our local law enforcement agencies. And so that is the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office, Newport Police Department, Toledo Police Department, Lincoln City Police Department, and then our local branch of the Oregon State Police. We also take case referrals really from any law enforcement agency. So it's not uncommon. For example, probably in the last year, we had a case where a child disclosed sexual abuse that occurred in Lincoln City. However, at the point that they disclosed it, they were actually in Arizona. So Arizona took the initial report. Arizona had them forensically interviewed, and they then referred that case to the Lincoln City Police Department. And ultimately, Arizona referred the case to the district attorney's office because the crime occurred here, which means that we're responsible for criminally prosecuting that. When I took over as district attorney, what I found is that we were getting a lot of referrals for cases where there was not sufficient evidence to prosecute the case, where law enforcement wasn't even finding that there was sufficient evidence to prosecute the case. And so I would say probably 95 to 98% of the cases that are referred to the district attorney's office have already had law enforcement establish probable cause. They've already established that there is more likely than not evidence that a crime has occurred. Most of them are arrests. We do get referrals sometime when they're unable to locate a suspect but have identified a suspect. But the majority of cases being referred, there is sufficient probable cause for them to refer it to our office before we even review the case. Last year, we filed 1,773 cases. We no actioned 266. So that means that we, a district attorney or deputy district attorney, reviewed the case. They determined that there was not sufficient evidence. They determined that we didn't have the resources to prosecute it. We determined that we either the defendant might have been deceased. There's a lot of different reasons that we would no action it, but we no action 266 last year. And we have about 347 cases that are either in review, so they're pending, they need to be reviewed by a DDA, or they're in the process of being charged. So there might be a grand jury scheduled or something like that, and it just has not been fully charged and filed with the court yet. On average, we get about 186 new cases referred for criminal prosecution every month. This is the last 10 months. You can see that it fluctuates a little bit, but on average, we have about 180 new cases that get referred and typically are reviewed. Any in custody, so any time that an individual is arrested and taken to the jail, they have to be reviewed within 24 hours, unless it's the weekend, we get a little extra time on that, or they might be released with a court date within 48 hours. So we really are reviewing these very quickly if the person has been arrested for the crime. But you can kind of see it's pretty steady. We do have months where it peaks, but we do tend to see about 180 depending on honestly what's happening in Lincoln County. Lincoln County Jail is right next to our offices here in Lincoln County. We work very, very closely with them as they typically are very much involved in not only the arrest, but also the arraignment portion of cases. These stats are as of December 16th of 2025. The total bed space of the Lincoln County Jail is 127 beds. It can hold 103 male population and 24 female population, and there are 14 beds that are reserved for parole and probation. So that's really supposed to be reserved for individuals who may need to be go into custody due to parole or probation violations for some type of sanction regarding that. The average population in 2024 was roughly 122 inmates. In 2025, at the time of this, which was about mid-December, we were at 135 average daily population, and the cost per day for Lincoln County to house an inmate is $185. Our stats was at that point was 11 inmates were held with no bail. Typically, you will see any type of homicide charge is held with no bail, but Oregon also has the ability that if it's a violent, dangerous offender, if it's a violent crime and there's reasons to be concerned about the community safety or the safety of the victim, that we can ask for an individual to be held without bail. You can see that back in December, we had 11 inmates total that were held without bail. We had 6 inmates charged with homicide that were pending their cases there. And then we had 88 inmates awaiting trial, and we had 39 beds available for probation violations or sanctions of those sanctions from sentencing. So if you were given a jail sentence at sentencing, that would be a sanction as well. Because of the, I would say, overcrowding of the jail, oftentimes we do see forced releases. So this is where the jail just does not have the ability to hold everyone that I guess should be held in custody. And so then the jail has to make decisions about who they're going to keep over other people. You can see 135 inmates back in December were released due to overcrowding, and 56 of those inmates were serving some type of sentence. So that means we saw several cases where an individual might have been sentenced to 60 days in jail for a crime, but because the jail did not have the capacity to hold them, they might have only served 7 days and then been released and never served the remainder of the sentence. After kind of the prosecution pretrial stage. We move into the adjudication or sentencing stage. This could look like trial. So if an individual wants to contest the charges against them, we often go to trial on those. They may plead guilty and take a plea offer in the case. They are then convicted and then they are sentenced. From 2025, you can see these are our jury trial stats. In Lincoln County. We had 53 criminal jury trials. In Benton County, they had 13. In Polk County, they had 33, and Clatsop County had 21. So we had a significant amount of jury trials. If any of you have served on a jury or had jury duty last year, you might have felt that as well. But we are oftentimes not only in court just for status type hearings, but we also, our office goes to trial quite frequently as well. After that, we then end up in the corrections, which is kind of the final stage of the criminal justice process. We have potential sentencing options. One option is treatment courts. The other options are probation. We have both bench probation, which is typically seen in misdemeanor cases where they're really just on probation to the court and they have certain orders that they have to fulfill, but there's not like a probation officer checking in with them. We also have supervised probation, so that is through our community justice partners. And then also one of the sentencing options in some cases is prison. Our treatment courts, I think, is probably one of the best things that we have going on right now in Lincoln County for crime. These treatment court programs are focused on treating the person holistically, teaching them life skills, and creating a sustainable life and healthy life for them, and oftentimes their family, their loved ones, and their children. It's not just about getting them to stop using drugs or substances. Oftentimes that is what is triggering some of the criminal behavior. But it really is more of a holistic approach, really trying to get them back to being a really productive member of society. In Lincoln County, we have 3 different treatment courts. We have drug court, we have mental health court, and we have family support court. Drug court is headed up by our presiding judge, Judge Cheryl Bockhart. Currently, we have 35 participants out of 50 spots. These stats are from January 1st of 23 through December 15th of 25. And you can see in drug court, we've had a total of 52 total graduates. They had a 62% graduation rate, which is 10% higher than the average statewide for a drug court. Many counties have drug court. And they had a 12% recidivism rate since 2020. For mental health court, that is presided by Judge Marci Baker. Mental health court is really trying to combat individuals who are using controlled substances, but also have mental health diagnoses and understanding that combination in between. There are 9 current participants out of, I believe, 16 spots for mental health court. In the last 2 years, they've had 16 total graduates. They have a 53% graduation rate, which is 1% higher than the state. And they have a 7% recidivism rate since 2020. The last treatment court is family support court. That is headed by Judge Amanda Benjamin. There are 9 current participants in that court out of 16 positions. And this is a very a specialty court in the sense that it is also dealing with substance use and people who have those who are battling those types of issues. But it also has the combination of DHS, or the Department of Human Services. So these are dealing with individuals who have typically had their children taken away or have DHS in their lives because of their drug addiction. And the whole purpose of that court is really to not only get them clean, get them sober housing, get them jobs, things of that nature, but to really reunite them with their children who are typically in some type of custody with DHS. They've had 12 total graduates. They have a 57% graduation rate, which you can see is much higher than our statewide average. Unfortunately, there's no recidivism rate available for that court because you don't have to have a criminal case to be part of family support court. There are a number of participants in family support court that don't have a criminal case. They may just have DHS involvement and they're able to go into the court. And so it's hard to have a recidivism rate when not every participant actually has a criminal case. We also have a program that you've probably heard about, which is deflection. Deflection is a pre-prosecution not treatment court in the sense, but it's essentially attempting to navigate individuals that would end up in the criminal justice system because of substance use issues and redirect them back into treatment prior to them having to show up to court or get an attorney or have to go through any type of criminal process. Right now, our deflection program is actually trying to get people prior to crime being committed. But when it was first started, the whole intent was for it to be law enforcement led. So law enforcement would have contact with an individual. They would have some type of controlled substance on their person. And instead of arresting that person for possessing methamphetamine, they would call a treatment provider, and the treatment provider would come meet with the individual and get them into treatment versus taking them to jail and starting this whole process. We have had deflection here in Lincoln County since December 30th of 2024. You can see that so far in the entire inception, we've had 141 deflection events. That means we've had 141 individuals that were referred for deflection or maybe contacted by law enforcement, and law enforcement thought that deflection might be a really great idea for them versus taking them into jail. In this time, we've had 28 of those kind of referrals that were just not eligible. So sometimes individuals may be referred for deflection, but they have a pending felony charge that then makes them ineligible for deflection because they're already going through the criminal process. And so that would make them ineligible and kind of have them veer off back into the criminal justice system. We did have 113 eligible deflection from that 141. So far, we have 19 who have successfully completed deflection. We have 50 who are currently active in deflection. And then we have 42 that are incomplete. That could mean that they started deflection, they did get some services, but then something happened and they then were unable to complete the program. It could mean that they just stopped showing up. And then we ultimately had 2 transfer to a different area. We have had some really great successes through the deflection program. Not only have we seen sobriety, which I think is huge. That's the whole intent of deflection is to get people long-term sobriety success. But we've also seen a reduction in homelessness. We've seen individuals gainfully employed. We've seen families reunited. We have one instance where we actually had a baby born into a drug-free home because deflection had really stepped in and really provided those services. And then we've also seen a reduction in crime. We've seen individuals who normally would add to the caseload of the district attorney's office never come to the district attorney's office because they've been able to go through the deflection program, get connected with a treatment provider, and then ultimately successfully complete deflection. In order for an individual to successfully complete deflection, they have to be in the program for 6 months, and they have to show 30 days of clean UAs in that 6-month time period. This was something that when we were building the program, we really relied on our treatment providers, primarily Phoenix Wellness, Reconnections Counseling, as well as the tribe. We're all involved in those conversations. And each county got to decide what success looked like. So our success looks so much different than Multnomah County or Lane County because we really built it for what we wanted in our particular county. And that was something that our treatment providers really stressed, was that this is what they thought success looked like in deflection. And I think that so how we've had 19 completed, we have 50 in it. I think that there is a lot of success there, and we're seeing that continue to grow. You can see for our first year, we were grant, it's all grant funded. There's a coordinator that's housed in my office, and she's amazing. She really connects people more than I ever imagined, honestly. But it's all grant funded. Our first year, we were awarded $341,256. We used about 80% of that, which was actually pretty impressive given we started in December. So we were about 3 months late to the game, and we were able to use about 80% of that. For the next funding cycle, it's about a 2-year cycle. We've actually been awarded $1.3 million for deflection. And so far we've used 14%, but I've been told that we are actively working on using those numbers. But you can see that This is really based on not only our success rate here, but also our projections of who we can reach in our community. And I really do think Deflection has been an incredible program that we've utilized here in Lincoln County, and we'll continue to move forward on that. I like to talk a little bit about the budget. I didn't know much about the budget, honestly, until I became district attorney. We are part, as the district attorney's office, we are part of the general fund of Lincoln County, and we are specifically part of public safety. Now, public safety is primarily made up of the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office, the district attorney's office, and then Youth Tides, which is a portion of community justice. You can see there's a very small sliver of the PMP work crew. That's also parole and probation, which is under the community justice branch. So you can see from this that the sheriff / the Lincoln County Jail, they make up about 73% of the public safety budget. And ultimately, it's roughly 19 million of the general fund for public safety goes to not only the sheriff's office, but also maintaining the jail, making sure that they have health services, sheriff administration, things of that nature. You can see next to that is the district attorney's office. We make up about 13.9%, and that also encompasses not only the district attorney's office and our criminal prosecution, but it also encompasses our victim advocates, which are constitutional rights that victims have, and they work through making sure that we fulfill those constitutional rights, but also child support enforcement. Not every district attorney's office has child support enforcement. It is actually many offices have handed that duty back over to the state. We are one that still has that within our office, which is actually a really great benefit to our community, because what it means is that we have local people who are working on retrieving child support, outdated or overdue child support for the kids living in our community, and making sure that the money is coming back to kids who really need it in our local community. You can see the last makeup of this is Youth Tides. That is about 11.1%, and ultimately it's a $2.9 million budget for Youth Tides. If you don't know what Youth Tides is our juvenile shelter here in Lincoln County. It's housed nearby the courthouse, a few blocks away, and primarily is a place for juveniles who don't have a living option. It's primarily a shelter for them. And you can see that we're actually pretty close in our budgets. Ours is a little bit higher because of child support enforcement and then our victim advocates. But we're very close to that $3 million budget in the public safety. You can see the district attorney's office responsibilities is criminal prosecution. We also handle civil commitments. So anyone who is experiencing a mental disease or defect, and they are unsafe to themselves or unsafe to the community, we represent the county in civilly committing them and sending them to the state hospital or a rehabilitation place to make sure that they get the necessary help that they need. We also handle all public records appeals from our local municipalities. We are part of multidisciplinary teams. We have several in this county. They are statutorily mandated, and we are responsible for chairing and coordinating them. We have the child abuse multidisciplinary team. We have an elder abuse multidisciplinary team. We have a sexual assault response team, and we also have a domestic violence response team as well. We also handle all of the grand juries, as I indicated, which is any felony charge has to go through grand jury. We are a member of the major crime team. So anytime that there is a homicide or an attempted murder, sometimes even very complex, like major crimes, like for example, we had a robbery up in Depot Bay in the last few months at a bank. There's a major crime team that's made up of representatives from each of our law enforcement agencies, as well as the district attorney's office. And we all respond. We get an alert on our phone saying there's been a major crime team call out. They happen at all hours of the night. And we all show up in the dark, usually in the rain, and we assist on that investigation. We also have a crash team. So if there's a fatality or a very serious injury due to a motor vehicle crash, we also respond to that sometimes. We are part of Deflection, as I mentioned, child support enforcement. We handle all of our crime victim services and notify victims of their rights. We also investigate officer-involved use of force or shootings. So back in 2024, we had about 3 officer-involved shootings in the matter of 8 weeks. It was a it was literally within my first 6 months of district attorney. It was just one after another. So all of those I responded to. My office ultimately reviewed all of the investigations that was happened. And then I made the decision to present each of those to the grand jury for a decision about whether or not the use of force was justified. Not every county presented to the grand jury, but I really think it's important for us to have community input when we're talking about the use of force used within our community against our members. We also attend parole board hearings. We have actually one coming up here in May that I plan to attend to, where an individual who was convicted of murder many, many years ago, probably a couple decades ago, is up for parole and wants to be released. And so one of the jobs of the district attorney is to go with the victim's family to those parole board hearings and advocate for why that person either should not be released or maybe should be released, depending on the circumstances. But that's something that we do and I was not here 25 years ago. And so one of the things I have to do on that is go through all of the case files and review the case and get up to speed on the case so that I can adequately support the victim and then adequately support, obviously, Lincoln County's position in that as well. We also handle all expungements. So that is a very hot topic right now. Every individual who files an expungement and wants their criminal arrest or criminal conviction set aside or expunged off their record, all of those requests come through my office. We have to make sure that they are eligible for expungement pursuant to the statute, and then we give the court essentially a yay or nay essentially regarding that. We also handle all of the Senate Bill 819 and clemency applications too for people who want essentially their convictions reviewed or reversed for some type of situation. They write to me and they ask me to weigh in on that. As far as youth tides, which I indicated is a very close, similar in budget to ours, they are responsible for the youth shelter, juvenile probation, and then juvenile expungements as well. As far as current staffing, you've probably seen this organizational chart before. This is probably not new for any of you. However, you can see that currently we do have several vacancies within the office. The administrative chief position is vacant. That has been vacant since July of 2025. I have a support staff individual that is vacant. That has been vacant since probably about June of 2025. The digital forensic analyst, this is a position that was created under the prior administration. One of the things that we combat pretty heavily here in Lincoln County is child sex abuse material, also known as child pornography. We have a few detectives that are very specifically trained in those types of cases. And unfortunately, we do see a rise in those cases every year. This position was created to really help assist those investigations. And unfortunately, this position has been frozen since January of 24, I believe, actually. We currently have 4 deputy district attorney positions that are vacant. We have a detective position that is vacant. We have an executive chief position that is vacant. And then we have 2 victim advocate positions that are vacant as well. You can see this like little blue guy down at the bottom in the deputy district attorneys. That is actually a grant funded position. That position is specifically for a position within the parole or the probation department. That position is funded by the Criminal Justice Commissions, through the Parole and Probation Department. That grant funded position is currently vacant. It's been vacant for about 17 months. And due to the vacancy, unfortunately, the county actually had to give roughly $260,000 back to the state because we did not use those funds. Unfortunately, that position was frozen by the county from May to October of 2025. It is currently hiring for, but it remains unfilled at this time. I think the saddest part about it is that in April, I was ready to hire April of 25. I was ready to hire into the position. And then that is when the freeze came down from the county. And so unfortunately, we've had to give that money back to the state. To my knowledge, that is one of the only grant funded positions that was frozen. And I think my department's the only department that had grant funded positions frozen during the freeze. We are currently hiring. That is the good news here. We are currently hiring for one part-time, no benefit victim advocate. I believe it's about a 20-hour-a-week position, which is great. That is grant funded. So it's great that we're going to be able to use our grant funds to fill that position. It will keep one part-time victim advocate unfilled though. We are currently hiring for 3 deputy district attorneys. We just had one individual leave, I believe, in April. And so they're allowing me to fill for that position. They've opened up a second position. So we're hiring for 2 that are general fund. And then we are hiring still for that grant funded position. We do have 2 individuals in backgrounds. So that's a really positive thing. And I'm hoping that those go smoothly and we're able to bring them in the next few months. They are both entry level deputy district attorneys, so there will be a lot of training that will have to go into that, but getting them in the door has been the hardest battle. So we're very excited to hopefully get them in the door. We're also hiring for the administrative chief position. As you can see, the way the office is really split up is that the management duties are really split between 3 individuals. You have the chief deputy district attorney, which is obviously Mr. Thornycroft over there. He primarily supervises the deputy district attorneys right now. You have the administrative chief, who really is kind of like the office manager of the office. They not only supervise all the support staff, but they also do things like the budget. They do things like making sure that we're lead certified and that we're CJIS compliance, things that we have to have for the office in order for us to have the ability to prosecute crime and review people's criminal history, things like that. They also are responsible for all of our grants. So we have roughly 8 to 9 positions that are grant funded in some way. That position is responsible not only for grant writing and hopefully getting more grants, but also doing all the grant reporting that's required. If anybody here has ever done grants, you know that can be a very tedious experience, but then all the grant audits as well. Right now, we are hiring for the administrative chief, which is great. But the executive chief, which is also really important to the office, remains frozen. And that's been one of the most difficult things because the executive chief, as you can see, not only supervises the victim advocates and stands in as a victim advocate on many cases, but also supervises child support. And both of those areas actually require specialized training. So it's not something that anyone else in the office can really fill in at because it requires such specialized training in order to do those 2 positions. The executive chief is also responsible for coordinating all of our multidisciplinary teams. So like I said, the child abuse, elder abuse, and then our sexual assault response team. And so due to that vacancy, which we haven't had someone in that position since January of 2025, it has really impacted our ability to be part of those multidisciplinary teams because we just don't have the person who coordinates those teams. You can see that from this, we still have 6 positions that are currently frozen. We have the executive chief, we have 1 deputy district attorney, we have the digital forensic analyst, we have the detective position, we have 1 support staff member, and then we have that part-time no benefit victim advocate position. What the county has done right now is they have allowed me to hire for the admin chief, the administrative chief. They've frozen the executive chief. And then what they've done is they've essentially rewritten the administrative chief job description and they've added in all of the executive chief responsibilities. So I can't get an answer as to why they've done this. When I've expressed that it's just not possible for one person to do the job duties of 2 full-time people. No one will respond to my emails. I've asked to meet with people to explain like why this just isn't feasible, but no one will meet with me either. And so that's been a pretty big hurdle in trying to fill this position, is because essentially we're asking someone to do the job of 2 people without the ability to do that, and then also on top of that, without any additional pay. I've also advocated for this position to essentially make what, I guess, based on pay equity, right? compare that to someone else who's doing everything in one office and that they should be making more money. And the county has told me that they're not going to increase the pay, but they're going to increase the duties. And so that has been one of the biggest hurdles in trying to fill that position, is that there's not a lot of people right now who want to do the job of 2 people and make what one person is going to make. So that's been a pretty big hurdle, and why I think that position has remained unfilled. Ultimately, you know, staffing is a big issue. I know everyone's struggling with staffing right now. But when we're down about 9 to 10 people of a 30-person office, I mean, that's, you know, a third of our staffing. It really does start to impact internally the office. It not only adds to an increase in the backlog, there's not enough DDAs to review all of the cases that are getting referred to the DA's office. But then you have this, you know, I am someone who I'm passionate about prosecution. I want to make sure that people are being held accountable for their conduct, and that we are charging cases and we're protecting this community through criminal prosecution. But that also leads to overwhelming caseloads, because you have newer DDAs who are having to take on larger caseloads to keep up with, you know, just the cases that are coming in the door. It also then leads to more lenient resolutions, because we don't have the staffing to go to trial on everything. And the defense attorneys know that. I mean, we've had individuals who have said, I set this for trial because I know I will get a better deal because you guys will be so busy with all of your trial backlog. Like, I mean, that's what I'm hearing from defense attorneys in our community, because they know that we're going to get more lenient. They're going to get more lenient resolutions when we have 4 trials scheduled on the same day, and we literally cannot do that. When you get more lenient resolutions, you get less accountability. That leads to dismissed cases at times because we just don't have the resources to prosecute them. It ends up with low morale, burnout, and then ultimately turnover, because there's 35 other district attorney's offices in the state of Oregon. And if you can go somewhere else and make more money and have a lower caseload, there's not a lot of people who are gonna, you know, give up that offer. So that's really where the staffing concerns comes down to. I think that ultimately you can see that the district attorney's office really has a place in the majority of the criminal justice process. Now, it absolutely starts with law enforcement, and we would not be able to do our job without law enforcement. They are the reason that we have a job. But as you can see, that the DA's office is part of not only the prosecution, but the adjudication, the sentencing portion, and then the corrections portion as well. And so without adequately staffing your district attorney's office, it really impacts overall public safety and overall our community and us living in a safe, happy community, and making sure that we're holding offenders accountable and also getting them resources, which I think is one of the biggest things the criminal justice system does on a daily basis. So that is all I have for you. I think at this point, we'll just kind of open it up for questions. And yes.
I got a question here.
Yeah.
Just looking at it from the business perspective.
Mm-hmm.
When you're trying to hire an admin or a management position,
Mm-hmm.
middle management position, and then your assistant DAs, from what I'm telling is you're having to feed off the bottom rung, and you're not getting the quality of attorneys that you should be getting to do a better job. Because if you can't pay them, what's the point?
Right.
You know, all we're getting is the bottom run.
Right.
And the thing is this is criminal what's going on with you being underfunded. And the whole thing here is how do you expect to hire anybody if you can't, you know, am I going to work for $10 an hour anymore?
I would guess not.
Right. I'm saying if you start looking and people start thinking about this, the hours your crew is putting in.
Yeah.
They may make 70 or 80,000, but when you look at their actual pay, is minimum wage.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, I will say that thankfully, you know, the deputy district attorneys are part of the overall union at the county, the Lincoln County Employee Association. And so the deputy district attorneys actually, they negotiate their contract with the county and they negotiate pay. And one thing that happened in the last couple of years is that they actually went to arbitration because they couldn't, the county would not agree to what the DDAs were asking to be paid.
They have pulled the same thing
Right.
on the sheriff's
I know.
office.
And
They
thankfully,
consulted our deputies with a 1.5% increase.
yeah. And I know the sheriff's deputies were successful in arbitration, and so were the DDAs. And so I think that, when we go to these arbitrations, the arbitrator recognizes how important these positions are to a county and how they do deserve to get paid, what they're worth. And so we did see, an increase in pay, but it wasn't because the county recognized the importance of it. It was because they had to spend money to go to an arbitrator, and the arbitrator then told them, no, your DDAs are worth that. Yes.
It looks to me like this is more of a addressing the symptom. And I believe some of the root cause would be involved with the county policies and stuff, making the county look attractive to the wrong kind of people.
Potentially.
There's another thing is Yamhill County had the same thing with their sheriff's office, probably 15 years ago. And they were just bringing deputies in and training them. As soon as they got enough experience and enough money, they went to work in Salem or Portland or Multnomah County or whatever.
Yeah.
And the thing is it's the same thing you're having in your office.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that the BS has got to stop.
We recently, a great prosecutor, Daniel, young guy out of law school. We trained him for about 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And he went to Beaverton Municipal Court, and can't blame him, young, but it was an extra, I think, $50,000 a year. I went to Marion County for a couple of years. I left the DA's office about 5 years ago and went to Marion County, great pay, great benefits. And when I saw she got elected, because I had worked with her before, and I'm like, all right, I got to come back home because I'm a coastal guy. I added it up the other day. I took a $68,000 pay cut to come back to Lincoln County. So
Thank you.
yeah. Now, thankfully, I practiced another type of law before I got into prosecution. So I'm kind of in a different situation, but we're asking, young folks with a lot of student loan debt. And then I think we all know the cost of living here in Lincoln County. So you're expecting someone with a huge student loan payment and then trying to find a place to live. It's tough.
And I think that I think that there is this knowledge, right, that smaller counties, district attorney's office oftentimes get that entry level. You train them up for a year or two and they leave. And I think that ultimately Michael and I want to change that, right? Like we want people to come here who love this area, who love this community, and who ultimately want to stay. I mean, that's the dream, is that you build up your offices and you get experience and things like that. But I will tell you, when I took over and I was advocating for pay increases, I was told by the county, people come here for a year, they get trained and they leave. And I said, but don't we want to change that? And they said, no. But it's a lot cheaper, right? It's a lot cheaper for the county to pay entry level for a year and continue to do that over and over and over again than to pay for the experienced attorney to be here
In
for
the
a
long
decade.
haul, it's in the long haul, does anyone not have any business sense 101? I mean, come on, folks. The thing is if you're turning over the dial every year, even this old poor bankrupt dairy farmer, when I was dairying, it would cost me between $1,500 and $2,000 the first goddamn month when I put a new milker. Not because they were inadequate or they were stupid. It's the fact that mistakes happen, all that. And then you get them through that process and then you want to let them go.
Right.
Come on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
As a person who's been in the governmental system for a very long time, I'm just going to say it does not add up to not retain good people, because it's worse in governance because you have to keep track of rules, regulations, and all the other things. And if you got to continually retrain people to fit that, you are wasting your money.
Right.
So we need to keep seasoned, good professionals in these positions.
Yes.
So you said that you're not able to prosecute some of the crimes because there's not enough staff. And the county released data this week that showed Lincoln County has more staff per reported crime than Coos, Klamath, and Clatsop County combined. So I just wonder what is driving the need for more positions here? Is it tourists? I mean, what is it?
So I think that there's some clarifications there. So I have not once advocated for more staff. I think that what the county has approved for my budget, I can absolutely criminally prosecute with the positions that they've approved. The problem is that I've been unable to fill many of those positions that have already been approved through the budget process. When the county provided that information, they're saying, look at the DA's office fully staffed compared to other DA's office that are fully staffed.
So that's
If
what they're
I-
comparing? They're
Yes,
comparing that.
That's my understanding. I think there's an asterisk that says something like this is fully staffed or something like that. Our office is not fully staffed. We're down, you see 4 DDAs right now. That's almost half of the DDAs that are criminally prosecuting. And one thing I failed to say is one of the DDA positions is completely grant funded for child support and cannot touch a criminal case. So she only does child support cases. And so even though it looks like I have this one extra person that should be able to help out with all the criminal stuff, she by her grant funding cannot do anything like that. And I think, is that the one from yesterday that the county
Yeah.
published? I think one of the biggest questions I have is that they're using crime statistics that are reported by law enforcement. So that means that every time law enforcement responds to a burglary, right? And they take a report and they have absolutely no idea who did it, when it happened, no evidence to go on, right? That's a crime stat. That gets reported. I can't do anything with law enforcement saying they responded to a burglary at this residence and had no idea who did it. So all like using those stats is not giving a good picture of actually like what law enforcement is arresting on and referring to the DA's office, if that makes sense. I would imagine, I see there's some police officers in the room and obviously the former sheriff, but there are a ton of times that patrol officers respond to crime that they then report to the state that never gets prosecuted because there's not enough evidence for it. So using those types of numbers to try to say that that somehow means something in the criminal justice system, it's apples and oranges. It's not comparable. Does that make sense?
Kind of, I think I just really need to sit down with the different numbers and understand. I
Yeah.
think that they just came out and, I just was curious how, what makes, I mean, we don't have a population of around 40-some thousand, certainly not in the summer. Our population almost doubles. So, I mean, that's what, I guess I don't understand the statistics that were released and how to compare them to this.
I don't think the statistics that were released also took into consideration the municipal courts too, that are prosecuting misdemeanors.
I wanted to say that and one, so when I started here in 2016, 2017, we were fully staffed and we weren't missing any prosecutors. Working with Jenna, I've seen us lose prosecutors, and I think there's with freezes, folks leaving for more money. I think there's this misconception out there that the district attorney is asking for funding for additional prosecutors. She's just asking, can we keep what we've had in the past? Because working with the Board of Commissioners, we found that was the magic number that worked. And also, and Landers pointed it out, we don't have municipal courts here. And so these other counties that the county is referencing, they have municipal courts that would take, if we had municipal court in Lincoln City and we had one in Newport, and they took over the criminal trespasses, the theft in the second degree from Fred Meyer or Safeway, the DUIs, oh my gosh, I would feel guilty, there wouldn't be enough work. But we have to absorb that. In these other counties that the county is referencing, they have those municipal courts that are doing the bread and butter cases that a DA's office gets. And that then takes all this work off of the DA's office. We simply don't have that.
That's why going back to these stats, I imagine the DA took those stats specifically from county district attorney's offices, and that's the number of cases they're prosecuting.
Right. The stat that I pulled was directly from the Oregon Judicial Department. So those were specifically cases that were filed with the circuit courts in each county. I think that if you wanted a better representation of what, I guess, our comparisons are, you would compare the judicial department's stats, which is what I've provided. You may reach out to the district attorney's office to see how many cases they're actually getting referred. Because there are hundreds, maybe thousands of cases that go to law enforcement that never get referred to a district attorney's office because there's not sufficient evidence or there's not a suspect or things like that. So the better stats would be through the judicial department to see what Benton County is filing, which is exactly what I've shown you on the screen. I got those directly from the judicial department, or reaching out to the district attorney's office and asking how many cases are getting referred to you and how many cases are you filing. The crime stats from law enforcement is not, it's not comparable to what we do in the district attorney's office.
Thank you. May I follow up also?
Sure.
How many positions are open because of the difficulty of recruiting people, the difficulty of housing here, and then how many positions are not able to be filled because of restrictions from the county?
I don't think that any of the positions are not being filled because of hiring, like because we can't find a person. We get applications. There's people that are constantly applying. We were just in interviews and I think we had 6 people apply for a DBA position. Now, I'm not saying all 6 of those were, you know, the cream of the crop, but we're getting applications. The biggest barrier has been the county.
And can I add something
Yeah.
here? Does it seem at all odd to you that we are trying to figure this out in a town hall together? And that she's learned about this on a Facebook post instead of having it in a budget committee meeting or a board of commissioners meeting? Does that
That's
not at
exactly.
all seem a little bit odd to anyone?
And it's an anonymous post.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask.
Okay.
When I pull it
Come
up
on.
and I see that, I'm wondering who's posting that? So Casey, you're obviously county commissioner. Did you see
No.
that post before it was
No.
posted?
No,
So
it's
where's
not
it
a
come
discussion, but we are not being talked to. We are not receiving professional wraparound services from the administration.
I have to interject here real
Okay.
quick, okay? This has to stay directly with Jenna. Now, if we want to go out in the parking lot, we can discuss the county stuff all we want. Okay, in every realm of it. Okay, Casey? But in here, the only thing that we have authorization to do, because we don't want city facilities used for outside political purposes, if that makes any sense to you. Because if we do that, for one, then we have to do it for everybody, because that's how the government works. Okay, we have to represent everybody equally.
How
So
many officials do we have here? Are you,
I'm the former mayor of the city of Toledo.
You're the mayor? I don't even know that's.
Yeah, I'm the former mayor.
Okay, and
We can have a discussion strictly about strictly about the DA's office.
isn't this?
I don't think there's-
Talking about.
I don't think
But
there's-
Casey,
I think we can talk about whatever. This is the town hall.
no. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, so let me try to explain it to you. So if we let Casey go, then we have to call Walter.
Walter was-
He was invited.
No, it doesn't. That is not what matters, Edward. Okay, what matters is that we give everything to everybody.
We have. We've invited them all.
We invited everybody.
Okay. I can invite anybody and my grandmother to a town hall. Okay, so let's say we're having a city council town hall. Okay, and we've done this a couple months ago, okay, over water. Right? We can have everybody and the grandmother show up, but once we go off water, we have to bring it back to just water.
But here's the thing, she brought up a subject that we're all wondering about. Somebody from the county posted something that conflicts with what the district attorney is saying based on statistics.
I don't disagree.
So she brought it up and
I'm
I
not
want
disagreeing
to.
with the question, Eddie. What I'm saying is that once we stray from her presentation and the question she's trying to answer, okay, so by you going off into we are not getting, that is not germane to the direct question that was trying to be answered. The reason I say that is because now you're talking about the internal politics of the county, not Jenna's department directly.
No, it's a fact. He's
I
talking
understand
about
that.
funding them.
Blasted.
You're distracting him. You're distracting from her presentation. People are asking where the funding is. We give a damn because we care about the
I
funding.
understand that. So let's walk outside the door
and have that conversation.
I'm here because I want to hear this stuff. Not
I get
because
it.
I want to go out there for it, or maybe I want to go on Facebook and talk to you about
It's
it.
so important, which I agree that it is.
It's very rare that we get to be with the district,
I
a
understand.
bunch of candidates.
A lot of people that want to represent the community are not having a chance to talk.
Question that's very general, and I think it'll kind of tie all of it back together. So number one, thank you guys for taking your time on Saturday to come do this for all of us. As you can tell, we all have a lot of stuff on our minds. The first question I had is with the budgets and the staffing and the stuff like that, has it been approached? Because we have so many people that are here that are retired, but they still have their law certificates and licenses. Has it been talked about doing like consulting for certain cases by people that already have it, which may not hit the budgets as hard, but it could be an interim idea until we get staffing done? And then second question that I'm talking about, kind of looping it all around, in your professional opinion, if we got everyone, every department in the county to work together, in your best case scenario, how long would it take to start turning this ship around?
So just to start with your first question, when I first took over, and Rod, would you mind sitting down?
Yeah.
Thank you. When I first took over in June of 2024, we were severely short-staffed. It was myself plus one other DDA. Typically, it's myself plus 8. So we were significantly down in numbers, to the point where the Department of Justice actually sent a prosecutor to be embedded in the office for 3 months to just help us stay afloat. When that happened, we absolutely looked at all those avenues. Like, what can we do to maybe not get people full-time in the door, but things like that. And we actually had a prosecutor who had retired recently, who knew the office and wanted to come back part-time. And so we actually contracted, actually it wasn't a contract, it was a part-time, no benefit position. They came back and they were doing 20 hours a week. And it was great because they knew the office. They knew what what kind of an average day looked like. They knew the charging, all that. It was the perfect help at the time. That person ultimately, because they were retired, right? They wanted to live in Newport, for 6 months, and then they had another home in Nevada and wanted to live there for the other 6 months. And so ultimately, when it came time to move down to Nevada, the question was, can I just keep remote working? And I thought, absolutely. There's a lot of things that can be done remotely that really assist the office. Unfortunately, the county said no, that they were not allowed to work remotely. And so because of that, that fell through. I think that we could potentially look at contract type positions. I think the hard part is that it's hard to contract like such a specific area of criminal law, if that makes sense. Because so much of, and Michael, maybe you can speak about this, but so much of our day is so kind of scattered because there's different court appearances and a lot of it does kind of occur Monday through Friday. It's difficult to like really work a part-time position in where it really does take a part of the caseload off of us. I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
And I was just gonna say, but that's kind of where I was going with that, is they don't want a full-time job. They don't want a 6-month year contract, but they will contract for a case
Right.
while they live here for the 6 months of the summer or the winter or whatever. So that's kind of where my thoughts were too. Yeah.
We kind of, like you mentioned, for a case, I know some of the bigger cases, like it was State versus Cromwell, and it was the 14-month-old child that was beaten to death. DOJ came in and helped us with that. I was co-chair. I worked with Toby Teamleaf that worked with Jenna for a while. That was a month-long trial. I mean, literally, we had to have jurors that took a month off of their life, 4 or 5 days a week. So it's difficult because then there's a bunch of hoops that we have to jump through as far as security clearances and all of the remote stuff that the county would need to provide.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a great idea with like, so when I was in Marion County, we had a ton of interns, but Willamette Law School was right there, right? So it was easy to get folks. So it's problematic to get that. Unfortunately, it's great. But unfortunately, in Lincoln County, it's kind of tougher. I think someone else had their hand up. You've had your hand up for a while.
So my first question would be, we've talked about the number of positions and what had been frozen or is currently frozen. Do you know the dollar amount as far as the budget impact on all of that freeze combined for your department?
I don't. I've asked for those numbers from finance and they will not provide them to me. I've also asked for comparisons because I like to think that I'm a very logical person. And like, if someone can explain to me, you know, like why we're doing X, right? Like I can usually get there with you, you know, like, okay, like that makes sense, you know? So I've asked like, well, how many positions, I mean, I know how many are frozen in my department. How many positions are frozen in other departments? Because if we're all got, you know, 6 to 9 positions frozen, then okay, we're all just, you know, in the trenches together. No one will give me those numbers. I've asked how much has my department saved so far, right? Compared to other departments. Can we see what each department, how much vacancy savings each department has contributed back? They won't give me those numbers.
So all of
I
that
don't know.
lies with the county finance department. You don't have someone in your department that is managing those budget numbers
Correct.
to where you have access to them.
And she shows me the emails she sends to the county and the various people, and I will look at them, I'll go, oh, that's good, send it. And it's crickets.
Well, I
And
was asking because what I would like to know is if you knew that number. So I don't know, like a hypothetical ballpark, but looking at the specific positions, the challenges with certain vacancies, I'm wondering, are those any that if you had to freeze that exact same amount of money in your budget, where would you save money? Do you see other opportunities?
Absolutely. And I think that that is really what I've been advocating since the beginning is like, I just want to be part of the conversation. You know what I mean? Like, I think that I hope, right? Like I was elected because you all believe that I'm an expert in prosecution, right? Like that I know what an office looks like, how it functions, what we can do with and what we can do without. And what I would hope is that the conversation would be, we need your department to cut this amount of money, right? Or to save this amount of money. And how do we do that, right? Because I'm a realist. I understand we all have budget issues. I understand that means I don't get everything I want, right? That's life. But if you can sit me down and I can say, listen, these 3 positions, we can do without right now, right? Like we can pause that, you can get the funding from that. That's great. And you know what? I will also these areas too, right? Like I will agree not to spend this full amount for training this year so that we can give that back to the general fund, right? Like I just want to be part of the conversation because what's really difficult is when I'm getting positions frozen and they're saying you don't need that. I'm like, but you don't know what I need, you know?
So I think, from my perspective, and I'm someone a lot of people trust and can navigate what's going on when they start hearing about stuff. And I would say there is a general perception that you have that information, that you're being included in these conversations in some way.
Yeah.
And then not getting your way. And I just want to throw out a perspective and ask you, like, is this a fair metaphor of I have a restaurant, I have a general manager, I have a front of house manager, a kitchen manager, and then I've got part-time people, dishwashers, bussers, hosts, all of that. And the owner, me, comes in and tells my general manager, you no longer have your front of house or kitchen manager, but you still have 20 people that run your restaurant.
Right.
That I understand in an operational context that, okay, I could probably do with 5 people as long as I had those 2, right? Right. And so what I'm curious about is in your operational context in this office, how you prioritize, or if you could quickly say, like, this is one I can't do without, or these are the ones that I feel like I would do anything else to keep these people here. Like that's kind of the nuance that I've been very curious about is, and I will be frank, I think it is counterproductive for you to not be involved in. I'm shocked that you're not involved in this one.
Yeah, so what I've been advocating for, and if you go back, I've not asked for exceptions to all of the freezes. I've really been primarily focused on, and this was prior to them letting me hire the 2 DDA positions, but primarily focused on the executive chief, the detective, and then I think I was asking for 2 DDA positions, which I've now gotten. The executive chief and the administrative chief, not having those 2 key management positions is absolutely impacting criminal prosecution and just the day-to-day function of the office. There's no one managing about 20 employees, which means that I'm managing those 20 employees day to day. No one's managing the budget, no one's managing multidisciplinary teams, no one's managing victim services or child support enforcement. So there's not, so when issues happen there, if anyone's been a manager, right, when issues happen in those areas, instead of having the person who is trained to step in there, I'm now having to step in and try to figure out what child support enforcement looks like, right? Like never done it before in my life. It's a very distinct area. And I'm trying to figure out, well, how can I help this, right? And I think having those two positions would really help just the general day-to-day. I can tell you staff feels like they don't have anyone. They don't have anyone to go to, and they don't want to bug me because they know how busy I am with criminal prosecution. And no matter how much my door is open, which it's open quite often, I think that there's this kind of like sense that they don't have anyone to go to with their problems and, that type of thing. And so those, I think being able to fill the executive chief, who is another body who can then help victim advocates, who is, has a frozen positioning and can help with kind of the clerical stuff if need be. I mean, that's the thing, is that when you have management can really fill in and on any position on the worker bees, right? Because they know everything. And so having those positions would really drastically.
Management might, I don't know, be on a contract or be exempt.
Right.
Or be salaried and.
Right, they're all salary. Yes, exactly. So they really can fill in wherever. I think also not having the detective position has really, really impacted our ability to prosecute cases, but also has added an increase onto our local agencies, our local law enforcement agencies as well. I've been very thankful with the sheriff's office because they have actually stepped up and taken a big, a big brunt of kind of the overlap there. But having an internal detective is honestly necessary. There are so many cases. We have a lot of law enforcement officers. We have a lot of crime here. There's a lot of times where we can't find someone to subpoena for trial. We have many domestic violence cases like that where victim has moved or, and so, or for some reason they don't want a subpoena, and those types of situations. And we used to have 2 detectives in-house who would literally go, that would be what they did that day, is go track down the person where they moved to and subpoena them for a trial. I can't think we've had to dismiss, I don't know, 10,
She just had to dismiss a major domestic assault because we could not find the victim that was unfortunate. She didn't want to testify. In the past, we would have those in-house detectives, and law enforcement does not work for the DA's office. We have we obviously work with them and all that, but we just can't pick up the phone and say, because they have their caseload, right? They're out there protecting the public. And when I was here previously under prior administrations, when we did have the detectives, it was amazing how we were able to put cases together and have that missing piece.
And I'll tell you, on that particular case, I was literally out at the victim's apartment. I knew she was there. I was out at the victim's apartment the night before trial, knocking on her door, like trying to locate her because I didn't have anyone in my office who could do that. And another example too is we had a pretty forcible rape case that actually happened back in the early 2000s that ended up coming back on an appeal issue. And the victim lives in Portland now. I've had the sheriff's office pretrial services actually go up and pick her up in Portland on 2 different occasions because I didn't have someone in-house who could go pick her up and she was unable to drive. So we've really had to rely on our other agencies, but then what that means is that pretrial services doesn't have an individual who's doing their actual job of pretrial services because they're trying to help my victim get to court. So I think to answer your question really completely, at this point, based on what they're letting me hire for, I need the executive chief and I need a detective, and the other ones can just be paused, and that's fine. And I'm happy to help with the budget issues, but I just want to be part of that conversation.
It's not fine, but you will adapt.
Yes, that's true.
I have one follow-up question. You really outlined the current concerns.
Mhm.
And I think, anyone paying attention can hear the very real costs that are happening right now. So just gonna go ahead and ask, what do you see the downstream costs being? And, you know, because that's always more than what you can see right now.
Right.
And I think it would be naive of us and irresponsible to not be looking at that.
Mhm. I mean, I can tell you right now, our offers are more lenient. We're dismissing cases. Cases are getting set for trial by defense because they know they're gonna get better. And what I think that tells defendants in some cases, right, is that the DA's office is gonna be stretched so thin at some point that we're not going to file a particular case. Or we're not going to, even though we might make an offer and then get set for trial, maybe it will get dismissed, right? And so I think they're, I guess my biggest concern, right, especially when we're no action in cases, is that someone goes into custody because they, you know, I don't know, they stole something, but it was a minimal amount, right? We don't have the resources to prosecute. Sometimes I think we just told that person, feel free to steal something under 100 because the DA's office doesn't have resources to do anything
And
about
it's so every morning when I come in, I'm looking at the cases that are in custody, or maybe someone has been released from custody. And thankfully, we have a lot of law enforcement, and the sheriff's department is really well staffed. All the other agencies are as well. But I have Madeline and I just have some prosecutors that are burning out. And I'm telling them, hey, we got help on the way. We got people in background checks, help's on the way. Because, you know, I guarantee you there is a prosecutor right now in the office on the weekend getting caught up on cases. And the mentality now when I'm looking at cases is where are we going to put these resources? I look to see on a lot of these, has the individual been arrested and is in jail? Are they hopefully going to get that message that they don't want to go back to jail again? And I will send just a courtesy letter to the law enforcement officer, the sheriff's deputy, police officer. And I had a Newport police officer, she put in a lot of work on this case, but it was a lower level case. And I told her, I said, we just don't have the resources right now. I'm not gonna go forward. It has nothing to do with the investigation she put in. She did a great job. But I made a note in the file, if this person does it again with a statute of limitations, I can bring that case back. That's not a good recipe for a DA's office, but unfortunately, we have to do that. He's had his question.
Well, really quick, I promise. I clerked in Washington County my last year of law school. I was in their district attorney's office, and I distinctly remember being in an arraignment one time. And an individual was arrested in custody for riding the TriMet, if you know the area up there, riding the TriMet without a ticket, right? Which in the general scheme of things, probably not the most severe crime. But Washington County filed the case, right? The defendant was arraigned on it. And I distinctly remember sitting there and the defendant told the judge, I have no idea why I'm in custody right now. This isn't a crime. This is not a crime. I don't get arrested for this in a different county. And the judge looked him in the eye and said, then you should know where you should go commit crime then, right? And that's, I think, the whole intent here, right? When you hold people accountable for crime and they know you're going to hold them accountable, there's going to be a less likelihood that they commit crime in your county versus when you know no one's going to file and no one's going to arrest you. I think there's more crime happening in those places.
And I think just to go what Mr. Thornapop said, and then I'll go to another topic on it, it affects the law enforcement too, because then they're like going out instead of putting all that work into that case, like,
Yes.
why am I putting all this work into this case? So now you can see where the downstream effect continues to go to now, you know, when they contact somebody and they have a suspect, they just don't put the effort into it because
Why?
And then from there, victims stop calling,
Yes.
right? Because
Yeah.
law enforcement didn't put effort into it, because the DA's office didn't put effort into it, and then it's just this cycle effect.
And that real quick, so what Sheriff, real quick, sorry, we're gonna get through, but this is great. This is great discussion. So Sheriff Winter, former Sheriff Winter, Lander, sorry, what you brought up is very important, that those lower level cases, and we call them the bread and butter quality of life cases, meaning you're at 7-Eleven or whatever, and there's the person out front drunk that's yelling at people. It's a disorderly conduct. That person needs to be removed. And we don't want to go and have our kids subjected to that, right? Well, that's a crime. We got to remove them away. But that disorderly conduct would be a crime that would be handled by a municipal court. It wouldn't come to the DA's office. So what Landers is talking about, that unfortunately that does, it starts, and I've even had police officers now, knowing we're short-staffed, this is a reality of what's happening. They call me and say, before I put work into this, is this something you're gonna file? And that shouldn't be happening. Law enforcement should be going, I know the work I'm gonna be putting into this case, I know the DA's office is gonna see me through. Law enforcement should not have to be calling the DA's office to go, am I wasting my time? So.
Guy in green.
If we took everybody in a category that slipped through from lack of prosecution for whatever reason, what is the recidivism rate of those criminals repeat offending? And then would that total amount of crime that they caused after equal more than what it costs to fund everybody that you?
So we're kind of operating out of the, right now where if it's a low level crime and we don't have resources, we're not filing that case up front. But if they come back, you know, within 6 months-ish, a year-ish, right? And they commit the same type of crime or a similar type of crime, we're then essentially filing the two cases together and kind of joining them together.
We're starting with 2 crimes in a criminal before
Exactly.
they're off the street instead of just
Exactly,
one.
right.
And
And
the
sometimes-
total value of those 2 crimes equals.
Right, and I would say like we're seeing that quite often, especially like in the trespass or the theft type arena where people don't, you know, they don't get a case the first time and so they go do it again, you know, and then we file it, right? And then they might do it a third time. I mean, those are sometimes cases where we see a lot of quick criminal acts within a short period of time. And yeah, you're absolutely right, is that ultimately, right, it would absolutely be probably a better use of resources to charge it on the front end and hopefully avoid the additional cases. But we're just like really trying to get by. And so that's just not feasible. And honestly, I would say most offices probably, when you're this understaffed, are not filing it when they come back a second time. I just care so much, honestly, that I can't let them just continue to think that they can get away with it. And so that's kind of the happy medium that Michael and I have, I guess, gotten to right now. But then it just creates another case, right?
But if you could quantify that number into an actual dollar amount.
Like,
Yeah,
or
or
what's
an
the value of
twice as
most of
much.
the lower level crimes that don't get prosecuted? What would you say the dollar average of those crimes are?
Like on a theft or?
Yeah, anything, just, you know, kind of, you know, if you guys kind of have a threshold, like, you know, if it's
Yeah.
over a certain amount, you just can't really let it go.
One,
But if it's under.
double the manpower going into all of the investigate and all of the law
Right.
enforcement response, so it really adds up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know how I would quantify that.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Fair enough.
But the important thing is, like you're seeing, if we now move forward on that person, we're at least having them on probation, right? We've seen how overcrowded the jail is. We're trying to reserve those beds for serious crimes. But I got like a guy that keyed someone's car, which I hate those kind of cases because it's so expensive to get your car back. And literally the victim called me up and he goes, hey, I know this is, you know, I know it's minor to you, but I'm working 2 jobs. I'm working at the mill. I just bought this truck, this guy. And so I filed on it, even though it was a lower level misdemeanor, to get the guy on probation where now he's making payments. And granted, it's not a lot each month, but at least my victim's gonna get something back. And he's so far he's made like $300 in payments. Well, that's better than just dumping the case, right? Not doing anything. I'd rather $300 goes into your pocket than me telling you, sorry, we don't have resources, but.
Yeah, I just want to, that was a good question because it's good to get into the nuance and the weeds on some of that stuff. My thing is more from a higher, like maybe 100,000-foot view of, I watched some of your videos. I wanted to kind of deep dive into things you've been going through since you've come into office. I've seen numerous videos where you either get shut down or the meeting, VOC meeting gets completely, everyone leaves and then you're making a comment about concerns that you have that then we see the fruit of it here and then it goes even deeper with what you're talking about. So we've got a lot of commissioner candidates here. And that's my biggest issue is right now it seems like you can't even get a word in. And that's been the issue with, you know, your budget, you don't get any say, you don't get to be in that dialogue, you just get told what to do. That would be different, you know, in your analogy there of you just kind of send a note and there's no communication there, but with the way that you're saying, it's like, actually, there would probably a back and forth there. You're not getting that, and you obviously have frustration, and I heard some of the words you're saying, like, high level people in the county, deceit, they're working in a shadowy way, and obviously we know what that is, but I'm wondering, with the new group of commissioners coming in, what kind of a communication structure do you want? What kind of, how do you want to be able to access those people?
Yeah.
What does that look like in a?
What's your perfect scenario?
Because I was thinking the same question on the drive here.
Yeah.
Individually with each commissioner and then with the board, if there's a differentiation.
Yeah. Yeah, so when I took over, I think that it wasn't a surprise, right, that the BOC and the prior DA had somewhat of a tumultuous relationship. And I had really hoped to change that. I ended up meeting actually one-on-one with both of the commissioner, both Casey and I had already had a good relationship, but with Commissioner Hall and then Commissioner Jacobson. And I really asked, I'm like, I just want a clean slate. Like I'm here because I love prosecution. I am here because I love being in court and I love being in trial like that. I've been doing that, now for over 10 years now. And, like that is where my heart is. And I don't want to have the conflict. And kind of the message that I got a little bit was like, well, you're going to have to pay for the sins of your predecessor until you kind of prove us differently.
What?
Yeah. And so, and it's hard because at some point, right, like I think my job is to advocate for my office. And it's not just to be a yes man all the time, right? I think anyone who's been in leadership before knows, like, it's not always about just saying yes whenever you're told what to do. It's about really thinking and advocating and doing what you think is right in the moment. And I am not someone that holds grudges. This is not something where I want to continue having this type of relationship with the Board of Commissioners or the county in general. Like, I want us to have mutual respect. I want to respect the fact that the people chose you, and I want you to respect that the people chose me, right? And that ultimately we love this community so much that we got up here, right? And we ran for election and we put the signs out and we, talked about how much we love this place, and that ultimately we want the same goal, right? You want a safe community, I want a safe community. And how can I help you do that? And how can you help me do that? I really hope that whoever comes in the next Board of Commissioners, that they want to, one, I guess, talk to me. That would be a really great start, right? No one other than Casey Miller right now will speak to me from county administration. It's very rare I get a return email when I send emails. So that would be my number one, is that we could just sit down and have coffee. We don't have to have coffee, but just sit down, right? And just say, how are you doing? Like, how am I doing? Well, how are things doing, and just really have that type of conversation. But then I think the transparency, right, is when I'm asking questions, it's not because I'm trying to be nefarious or malicious or things like that. It's because I truly am newer in this job and I'm trying to understand the dynamics of the county. And when you won't give me answers to just really simple questions, that feels like there's something more there, right? Because if there's a simple answer or there's a, transparent answer, like I'm expecting this should be an easy conversation. And I have gone to many, Board of Commissioner meetings. I have made public comments. I've made press releases. I don't want to be in the media. Like, this is not like where I want to be, right? Like, I love to be in trial. Like, Michael knows that. Like, trial's where I want to be. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be giving my closing argument. I don't want to be in the media. I don't want the hate in the media. But when no one will speak to me and no one will listen to me, that was the only place that I felt I could be heard.
And I just want a quick follow-up on that.
Yeah.
So you've said that you have clear communication with Casey. Right now, the other Board of Commissioner is Walter Chuck.
Correct.
When you send him an email, what do you get back?
He does not email me back.
Do you try to have face-to-face interaction with him?
I try. He's very hard to track down. I'm in the courthouse Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5 every single day. I don't know what his schedule is. I've tried calling him. He won't answer my phone calls. I email him. He won't answer my emails. I've met with him one time. It was when he was first appointed. And he came with a second individual, which I was not expecting, which was fine. And the first question he had was, are you recording this conversation? And I said, no. And then I proceeded to kind of want to talk about my concerns in the county that had been bringing up in the media and stuff. And he told me, we're not gonna talk about that, and I hope that you respect that. And I was like, then what are we here to talk about, right? Like, that I asked you to talk about this, you don't wanna talk about that? And then he essentially told me that he believes his job is to be the face of the county. He believes his job is to hire a county administrator, and that he does not believe his job is to manage the people, and so he will not be doing that.
We need a new face.
So so I've worked for I started with Michelle Branham, Jonathan Cable, Chris Stringer. So I've worked with a lot of DA. And just watching Jenna trying to communicate and once again, I'm looking over going, yeah, oh, I like that sentence, that's good. And sending those emails, making those phone calls, and it pains her for the elected district attorney. The only way she can talk to the BOC is to sign up for public comment. Something's wrong with that when the district attorney has to sign up for public comment and is limited to that.
Well,
So-
I think transparency is the number one thing our world needs right now, right? Like, people have questions and we should be able to give them answers. And I will tell you right now, like, this is my 4th town hall. None of you are plants, right? Like, you all come in here with your own life experiences and you ask your questions. And I stood 4 different times in this place, ready to answer any question that you have regarding my office, regarding what you've seen in the media, regarding my VOC comments. And Casey's been here along with me every single time. I can't get that type of access as an elected official to the other board of commissioners. I don't know. I don't know if he's doing this as well, but I know no one else in the county is.
So my last question, sorry, is, my last one is, I asked Casey previously is, so then when when my wife shows me this post that negates what you're saying about these statistics from the county, the official account, who's doing that? Is it Walter Chuck or is it somebody else?
I have no
And who
idea.
got the authority to do that?
I don't know who has authority to do what in the county right now. And honestly, I don't think Casey does either. We have no idea.
How can we compare the
Have any of the candidates running for office made communication efforts with you? So to be open and hear your end of communication? I'm just
So you're one of them. So yes, I mean, I obviously, if you're a candidate here, I invited you to this town hall. I sent an email. You, Kathy, you responded and you asked, that you said you would be here and then asked if we can meet. We obviously had that phone conversation. I really appreciate that. I've also met with Cristen Don. I met with her this past week, and we sat down for coffee. And honestly, it was great getting to know the both of you. I also have met Eddie Townsend. I know him. We've had a chance to speak about the county stuff. And then I've been in touch with Curtis Landers, I think, throughout my entire saga, because, obviously, Curtis knows firsthand what's happening internally. And so he has been a great mentor and a great person to lean on in some really difficult times that I've had with the county. And so I've obviously been in contact with him as well. So I have heard from several of you. I appreciate that. I mean, I think at the end of the day, whoever ends up in those seats, I'm hopeful is coming in with kind of the ability to put the past in the past, because that's where I'm at. I don't want to continue whatever's been happening over the last 2 years. I really want someone to come in and ideally give me a fair shake and let me show you why I love this job so much and how we can work together.
And to talk in kind of for possibly new commissioners here, it's like, it's so tough for us in the DA's office to watch other departments hire for positions, not frozen positions, but we've seen new positions.
Yeah.
We've seen all these other departments hire, while meanwhile, public safety, we're just forced to get smaller and smaller in the DA's office. All that your district attorney is asking is like, okay, can you sit down and tell me why? What is it that I'm doing wrong? How can I, there was a form that you didn't know about. And so she will never say it, but I worked for a male DA, Jonathan Cable, who was able to add 2 positions while I worked for him. Jenna asked me, because the communication with the county wasn't going well, to hire prosecutors. I thought, why not? I'll give it a shot. So I emailed the county and said, hey, I want to fill this position. This person's leaving. We thought they would be freezing it. They responded to me, oh yeah, you need to fill out this form. I printed it out and gave it to Jenna, and Jenna was like, I've never seen this form. What is it? So I just think that for those of you that may take that, Jen is not asking, like I said, to enlarge her office. It's just, could she just sit down with you and go, okay, what is this other division, this other county agency doing that is allowing them to fill a position that I'm not doing, hence that one form that,
Right.
go on. So that's all she's asking.
Can we compare the apples to apples or the oranges to oranges? Like, could we try to get that information so that, we can determine, like, so we don't have your statistics that are from the Justice Department and the counties from.
I was talking about the post that you're gonna respond to.
Right, I guess I'm just not, I've compared, so the stats from the judicial department, I think, is apples to apples, right? It's how many cases are we filing in Lincoln County compared to how many cases are being filed in the circuit court, right? In the comparable counties. I think as far as the crime stats, right? Like the way that you would utilize that just in an orange to orange situation is you would say, how many is Lincoln County Sheriff's Office responding to? How many is Toledo responding to? How many is Newport responding to? But I don't know how to compare law enforcement responding to crime to what we're filing in the circuit court. Does that make sense?
Yes, I
Okay.
think so. Also,
Because we serve different purposes, right? Law enforcement gets called when a dog is on the loose, right? Like, but we don't file criminal charges when someone's dog's not on a leash. So like, I think that's the hard part, right? Is law enforcement responds when there's someone drunk at Dairy Queen, yelling. That's going to get reported to the state, but they might not arrest on that, right? So that's going to look like, wow, look, law enforcement responded to Dairy Queen and contacted the drunk person and told them, hey, do you have a safe ride to get home, right? But the DA's office didn't file on it. Well, of course we didn't file on it because that's not a crime, right? So I don't know how to use those two stats to somehow make a correlation. Does that make any sense?
Maybe I'll go in and see out of all those law enforcement statistics, how many actually had clearances and arrest on them too, because the state keeps track of that also. But when I brought up the link that they provided in the posting on the county site, that wasn't what it went to. It would go to the actual arrest. I think.
Well, I think the problem is too, is that when you've got your own county, which you are the elected district attorney, and posting anonymous posts under the Lincoln County fan, I think that's a problem.
Yeah.
Especially the timing. It's just interesting that it hasn't got posted in the last month. It just got posted yesterday, right before the town hall.
Yep.
And I think as thinking people, we should be able to say, well, what's this timing about? And what is this? Because I looked at the link they gave and examined it pretty heavily, and it's not making any sense.
Right.
And because we don't know the difference between the people that are arrested and the people that are actually getting charged.
Right. Report to that. Obviously, I'm not a law enforcement agency. We don't respond to crime, right? So I don't ever report to the Oregon State Police, whatever that dashboard is. So I don't even know what you are reporting about, right? Like, and so that makes it difficult too, because again, I just don't know how to compare law enforcement stats to prosecution stats in the way that the county's trying to make a point about.
And the other part of that too, with the misdemeanor cases go into some of those cities, I think you could pull those out, look at how many in those counties are prosecuted by municipalities.
Right.
And to that point, I know Lincoln City has contacted me a few times asking about doing it. They want to do misdemeanor cases up in there. And a couple things came down to it. They wanted to have jail space for there, and I'm like, we can't guarantee that. And because you saw what the jail was. And the other thing was when they found out, they're like, well, it costs a lot to do that. And yes, it does. So by the time you put jury trials, have all the staff that goes with it, it costs a lot. And so they're like, well, give it to the county's already paying somebody to do it.
And that's even for misdemeanors.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yes.
Because I looked at it here when I'm my time at the city.
Yeah.
And I think so on Monday, we two of our judges are out on Monday and Tuesday. Jenna and I are going to be responding to that. But I think I'm going to start calling the municipal courts in various counties to get their numbers because I know they're overwhelming.
Yes.
Like the prosecutor that that left, that I was talking about, Daniel, that went to Beaverton Municipal Court, it's there in Washington County. And they're one of many municipals in Washington County. And it was in the thousands that they, granted Washington County is much bigger, but the Beaverton city as itself was a huge caseload. So I'll get those numbers, expect
It
those.
would be
Yeah.
helpful so that
Yeah.
everybody is using the same metric
Exactly.
to measure what we're talking
And
about.
it's just it's so hard when we're this unique county that doesn't have municipal court. So it's inflated. When you look at those other counties, they're not dealing with as much, or they are, but the municipal courts are taking it.
I also reached out to you as a candidate.
Oh, okay.
Ms. Wallace, excuse me.
Yes.
Everyone, I'm sorry. I am taking a 2-day first aid certification course. I need to go back to my class, but I just want to say something. These are professionals.
Yes.
These are good people. These types of discussions, governance, budget, they should be happening in public, in county commissioners meetings, in budget committee meetings. That is the appropriate venue for a professional to receive wraparound services to elect you. Okay, so good job. Okay.
And I just want to I want to take a minute to thank Casey too. Casey has been to every single town hall, whether it be in Newport, all the way up to Lincoln City, down to Yachats. And I really appreciate that regardless of what Casey is going through, that he has always allowed me to have open communication with him. So I really do appreciate you.
Appreciate it.
I just want to thank you too for showing up. He's got the second best looking flower shirt.
I know that.
He just take his shirt off. I don't know.
He's had his hand up in the back.
Hold on, go ahead and then we'll go to
You
you.
want to go ahead?
Sure.
Go ahead. You were.
Well, to your point about hiring, how seeing you see other departments getting hires and your department lacks it. So I compared 2024's hiring to 2025's hiring. And I used the BOC meetings, first of the month agendas that showed all the new hires. So they stopped doing that in January, but I don't, so I went and did 2025 and 20. So you got 0% of your staff. Health and Human Services got 77.4%. Community Justice got 40% of their staff. So I'm comparing 2024 to 2025. Sheriff's Office got 42%, Public Works got 41%, Transit got 125%. And the rest got 0%. So assessor, I guess they didn't need any hires. So I can share that spreadsheet with you guys.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Yes.
Hey, I want to tell you what Commissioner Miller said to you. You guys are the most impressive political office, law enforcement people I've ever experienced. No notes. Look, if she didn't do any notes, she covered things. My 25, I just wanted to retire in Lincoln County. I didn't live anywhere longer than 3 years since I was 17. I lived here since 2003. I'll be 65 in September. I was a Marine. I was a deputy for 2 years in Florida, so I got an FDLE. I then went to the feds. I worked with the FAA. I was a whistleblower in the feds. I worked in administrative, regulatory, drug and alcohol stuff. Whistleblower on the value jet crash. Go a long way. Picked up a law degree in 02, down to 99 and an 02 at 42. And then I went to work for the state of Oregon as a liquor inspector. And my first assignment, I got hired by every district in the state. And I picked this, and I was the first guy ever to have a district who wasn't an experienced regulator. And what I loved about the position was the community. And I had a chance to work. I didn't want to be a cop anymore. I didn't like it because I don't like attorneys. I got to change it. But I love you guys because you are genuinely sacrificing. Our domestic warriors are our law enforcement and our first responders, our sheriffs. And I came here and I just wanted to retire with my motorhome on the beach with my dog and my pig. I was supposed to be watching space launches and all that other stuff. And I've seen this stuff going on since I came back during COVID. And I said, no. I remember being in law school and a kid came up to me, and I'm sorry for getting distracted, but I wanted to tell you, I did not even know in my experience at every level, minus city, I haven't worked for a city because I just haven't because that's where I live and I don't want people to know who I am. But you showed your duties at a DA's office that is unbelievable. unbelievable. When I see these treatment programs and these continuing programs and everybody talks about, we need to do mental health, we need to provide the funding instead of law enforcement. Who do you think's doing it? Okay, where's our Department of Health and Human Services and all that stuff at first? Oh man, I was just getting distracted on that.
When you went to law school.
A kid came up to me. I'd been a deputy. I'd been in administrative law at the FAA. I argued. I had my professor come up to me and said, I'm going to bump your con law 1 and 2. He was the dean too. And he came up to me and he says, I'm going to bump your score up 3/4 of a point. Normally I want more than a quarter because you're the first one that debates me all the time. And I said, and how many ever have won every debate? You know, because you show up there with life experience. And these ideologues are learning theory over reality. And when I came here, I worked with all these businesses. They were overwhelmed. I had the mustache ladies in the legal department in Milwaukee screaming at me because I didn't get enough violations. Why? Because I was putting 40,000 miles a year in Lincoln County visiting the business owners so they could understand what the laws were. Now with your statistics, I would study police reports on everything that was related to any licensing. I'd read it and go, you're kidding. They had drunks coming out of that bar. If the local police and the sheriff's department aren't finding any kind of criminal stuff, I used to go undercover and work undercover in meth bars, biker bars, strip joints, and all that other stuff. I saw the ugly out there that was out there. And they were still trying to get me to do stuff. And one of the things I learned, having worked in the local county and fed in law school, kid comes up to me and goes, just because you did it and just because I was in family law defending men that we weren't all evil. You know, anybody that's ever done domestic violence has been to plenty of places where she's got his scalp and her fingernails kicking him. He comes up, just because you did and just because you saw it doesn't mean that's how it goes. I go, what? He goes, what's your solution? And I always do this for shock value, pornography. In US versus Larry Flint, they determined that the local prurient interests are what's going to determine what's offensive. If your community doesn't want it, you don't have to have it. And you need to police your own community. Our county has a fence around it that ends with you and with the sheriff and the county commissioners. Right? And we're like a homeowner association as a BOC. We are a community. There's no politics in this county. If we don't take care of our people here, and what really pissed me off is when I see what the DA can't do. But when I would get these police reports just for the stats, I'd read it, it wasn't worth filing and all that other stuff. So I wanted to come forward and volunteer because this young lady here brought up something. I've been calling. I met with General Flynn down in Phoenix. I met with people from Turning Point. I've written, in fact, I'm calling Harmeet Dillon on Monday. There's a lot of people my age that are old and retired, and we've got experience. We've got time. Okay. I failed the bar. I tried to study while drinking beer and smoking weed and playing frisbee golf. Part-time. You know, it's not going, no. But I'm taking, I ended up but I can do my abilities and other abilities to invest.
You need a great process server.
And then, but there's stuff that's being screened and there's stuff that can be done. And if we don't volunteer at our local community, and I just want to pray because I'm definitely one that doesn't hold my, they used to ask me to do this, unionize us in the feds. I said, why me? They already hate you. So thank you for what you're doing. Thank everybody for getting involved because
I think we need a new county administrator, so.
County is the greatest place I've ever been in the world. I've been here 24 years. I'm not going away. So thank you all for stepping up. And I didn't want to say who I was or because nobody knows me or they do know me. But
And we do now.
oh, yeah, I'm got it for killed.
All right.
I just want to know if you're gonna make this available.
Yes.
So, okay, awesome. Thank you for your time and thank you for doing what you're doing. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming, Virginia.
So kind of nuts and bolts question, back to that. With the 66% increase the county is going to get out of the transient lodging tax revenue, have you just thrown this to the wind, asked if that money can be used to make your department, to make the sheriff's department whole again?
I haven't asked that yet. I'm hopeful, obviously. I think, you know, where I really struggle is that I don't think I need more money.
Well, but to fill those positions.
Right. But, and that's, I think why I struggle with the budget, right? Is because logically, right? I'm a logical person. Logically, if my budget has been approved, I believe that the funding is there, right? So, And then until I'm told the funding isn't there for my particular budget, right? It's hard for me to like ask for more money or ask for, but I get what you're saying is like, can I fund my budget differently than?
Well, so here's why I bring it up,
Mhm.
because one of the things that, I'll be blunt, works really well when you're dealing with public agencies, is if you show them another funding stream and they're still not using it to get their job done, to use an old phrase, it's heaping burning coals on their head. Because sooner or later, they're gonna crack and they're gonna say something that they probably shouldn't have said. But we've got to push this county to being open, transparent, and honest with everybody.
Right.
Because right now, they are far from that.
And I agree with that, Rob, but the one thing that she showed as an example up there, that's not about the money, is she had a grant funded position.
I understand.
Completely out of.
No,
that.
I understand, but by saying, look, you could use this,
Yeah.
so what's your excuse,
Yeah.
right?
Because,
Well, we gotta be able to talk to folks to
Yeah.
make that happen.
But that's what, right?
Yeah.
You do it in public,
Yeah.
you can't, and you say, look, here's another way you can do this. So if this is not your issue, then what is the issue?
yeah,
You can beat this whole thing to death for months as it's been, everything else, and I'm gonna offer a solution that is real simple, that will take care of every problem that our county has. And this is for you guys that are running for office. There's something that has to take place. You've got to go to the department heads, the cabal that's running our county now, and you gotta fire them all, clean out the dock. And you guys take back the power of your offices in this county. That's the only way it's gonna be resolved. And I mean, you can think I'm mean and nasty, and I don't care. The bottom line is you gotta clean that whole goddamn place out.
Well, hold on, because Jenna did that. Sure, but that's.
No, she's elected.
Right.
A responsive BOC would probably call for an audit to do that, so we need to change the process because we are where we are and it hasn't happened overnight. 24 years ago, I remember Rob Bovet used to work for the county commissioners.
Yeah.
And everybody it was this amazing team of stuff. And to see it change, and I'm as partisan as I get, I won't even, not one person's mentioned any political party, nothing to do with anybody outside of this county. And it's like, it's just common, did you see all the job sheet? Who the hell's not funding that? Who sits there that doesn't want to fund your executive chief? I mean,
Thank you.
it's just common.
I gotta go, 'cause I gotta run up.
I was just gonna say last question, but yeah.
I just want to say, I really appreciate you guys doing this. I was educated even more than I was previously, so thank you so much. You guys are doing hard work. If I was elected, I would definitely, I think I would clear that up, trying to pass that along. That's my view, is I think I want to make sure that all of those functions are a lot easier on you, because I see the work and the burden that's on you guys, and that's just where I stand. On the second thing is, you said something previously that some people don't really want to talk about. You said, it sounds like you don't, and Casey doesn't know who's in control. And that's a nefarious thing. The DA saying that, and one of the county commissioners saying that is the question that we need to answer. So everybody that's running and not discussing that, because if you do get elected, you're gonna come up against it. And so you're gonna have to figure out what your mindset is going into it, because she's not talking about it, but that's what they're really hearing.
You're gonna get Casey.
So I appreciate you guys.
And I was gonna say, mine kind of ties in actually with what Eddie's
Your
saying.
last question.
Okay, so I'm small town farm girl from Montana. So we did not have a lot of taxes. We did not have a lot of administration or resources. So we did have a lot of community support and buy-in. So I know that with some of the stuff stretched, have you guys seen like more vigilante stuff in the communities of taking care of issues or business? Secondly, is there stuff that the communities can do, volunteer, whatever, that don't have to have clearance, that don't have to do this? What can we do? Because everybody in this room, so many of them I've seen at different things, we're all very passionate about where we live. So what can we do to support you guys besides just voting? I mean, what else can we do to help?
Thank you.
So I think as far as vigilantes,
I'm not seeing any.
it's not safe.
I've had dreams of it.
I will say though, like one of the currently pending homicides that we have right now is one where they tried to get law enforcement to assist and then ultimately took matters into their own hands.
Oh, the sex and.
Right, which I'm not saying that law enforcement was to blame for that by any means, but it was one where, right, it was one where they didn't feel like they were getting what they wanted from law enforcement. But I think on the day-to-day, I don't think that we see, thankfully, vigilante justice, which I think is a plus. As far as what you can do, I think just raising awareness, obviously voting, and you mentioned that, but I think just raising awareness, I think a lot of people really, unless you have contacts with the district attorney's office, you really have no idea what we do or all that we encompass. And so I think, raising awareness about what we're doing and what we're dealing with, I think is really helpful. As far as, like volunteering, like specifically in the office, it's just really hard because a lot of what we do is so specialized. And then there's a lot of security clearance that, goes with, reading police reports or reading criminal history worksheets and things like that. But I do think that there's probably something that someone out there has some type of, like you were saying, like retired attorneys and things like that, that absolutely could possibly assist. It's hard to know how you not hire for that. What's the word I'm looking for? But like how you advertise something like that, because there's so many different areas of law, and we're criminal is such a small piece of that. But if you know of anyone or you hear of anyone, I would love some volunteer help. I would never turn down a volunteer.
Our specialty courts, our deflection program, and one of the things too, and Landers touched on this, we have that grant funded DDA position. But in order to, and that grant funded DDA position is going to work with parole and probation. And I love specialty courts, especially drug court. I'm really passionate about drug court. But it requires a lot of resources. It requires a full-time prosecutor. And if we can hire another prosecutor, then we can take our experienced prosecutor that we have, move her into the drug court specialty court, which we're really excited about that. And we're bringing in folks, but that's been on hold for quite some time, that grant funded position. And that grant funded position, the nice thing about it, it's going to help parole and probation, and it will help the DA's office. And more importantly, it's going to help individuals in the community that have found themselves in the criminal justice system, that we can save them. We have resources we can put their way. And, Jenna touched on drug court, but the one of the things about drug court is so many individuals that in drug court that find themselves in need of treatment. My insurance that I have through the county that you guys pay for, Cadillac insurance. If I wanted to go away to drug and alcohol treatment, I could be somewhere this afternoon, Serenity Lane, for 6 months, and it would be covered by my insurance. Individuals that find themselves on probation or in drug court, we have them on waiting lists. They're on a waiting list to go get help. And there's just so many things that we can put resources towards.
But yeah, I think that, at the end of the day, and I think Marci, you really nailed this on the head, like with just a few additions, to the office, or not even additions, that's not the right word, but being able to fill just a couple of the positions would put us in such a different position than we are right now. And I think that's, ultimately, I think the community deserves to know not only what we do, right? Because your taxpayers do pay for the majority of the office, but also know what our challenges are right now. And ultimately, I want to be as transparent as I can regarding what's happening in the office and what we're dealing with on a daily basis. And I just appreciate you all giving up a couple hours on your Saturday, especially in this beautiful day, to come listen to us drown on about our favorite topics. So I really do appreciate that. And if you ever have questions, I'll stay after a little bit. But also I'm always available by email. You can come by my office. I will make time to meet with you because I do think it's so important. You put me in this position and I want to be available to you all. So again, really, really appreciate you guys coming today.